There are not repercussions for all this mess that's going on with the DeMond Williams and LSU situation. That precedent will cost college football forever because what is really a roster?
Locked On presents The Portal, the daily podcast covering college football recruiting and everything NIL. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Back into the Portal Podcast, where you get your daily recruiting, NIL, and transfer portal scoop. I'm your host, Brian Smith, longtime college football recruiting analyst. Thank you for making the Portal Podcast your first listen each and every day, right here on the nation's #1 podcasting network, Locked On. We're going to be discussing the Portal Rundown, the top 25 players by 24/7, go through them, talk about which players are committed where and why. That's a little later on in the show. We're going to talk about what fans think. I want you to comment in the chat, and if you're listening to this later on, comment. What do you have to say? Let's hear it, whether it's on social media, whether it's on the YouTube page for Locked On the Portal, whatever it may be. Let's hear what you have to say. But to start, I'm going to give my take on why the DeMond Williams at LSU situation not only impacts the Tigers, the Huskies, the Big Ten, and the SEC, but every player and person that's involved with college football. If NIL contracts are not held accountable between the two parties, then what's the point of contracts? And I know they're not employees before anybody comments. Totally get that. But if they're not, we're not going to have rosters because everybody tampers a little bit here and there and some more than others. But if this goes through and DeMond Williams can go to LSU without any repercussions, then we don't have rosters at all. There will be players that magically sit out from one school because they got an offer from another in the middle of the season, and they're going to be like, look, we'll give you this money, but you can't take the chance of getting hurt. You got to drop out. We're also going to have scenarios where guys literally, this is eventually going to happen, literally try to transfer even after a season has started. They're going to really challenge the portal window. This goes back to the Xavier Lucas situation from Wisconsin to Miami, but this would be the second one because he transferred after the portal window. That never really changed anything. If this happens again, it's over with. So I'm not trying to pick on DeMond Williams, but for the sake of college football, if this happens, it is going to be Katie bar the door. Now, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not going to try to go into the lawyer side of this. I'm just talking about repercussions, whether or not it's enforceable, whether it's not. Every state is different. That's for the lawyers to discuss. I'm just talking about one simple precedent. College football going down a path that is going to be very difficult to get out of if DeMond is allowed to, A, sign an NIL deal that also has within it, allegedly, a contract agreement that says he can't get into the portal, and then he transfers anyway. What's the point of the contracts? There has to be something that holds the player, the agent, the agency, whatever it may be, to the fire. There's no shortcut here. There won't be anything that's really true when you see like LSU roster, Fresno State roster, Michigan State roster. Is it really? Because that player can leave whenever they want. Doesn't matter what they sign. Is it really a roster, or is it just players on a list that they might be there? This is not a good sign for college football. And I'm not going to get into the tampering thing and all that just yet. We'll get into that in a moment. But just look at this big picture and ask yourself, how is this going to work itself out in a quote unquote positive way if this goes through? I don't see it. Now, to that end, let's talk about the tampering and all that stuff. Whether somebody wants to go down that path, that's up for them to decide. I mean, there's a lot of ways you can look at this, but here's my take on it. These are the questions that I have. Number one, if NIL contracts are not enforceable, what are we doing? Talked about that already. Why DeMond Williams to LSU makes sense. I'm going to bring that up because for those two parties specifically, it actually does. If no repercussions, are there really any rosters? We talked a little bit about that. Who should be getting sued? I want to throw out my thoughts. And if you're a lawyer or just have an opinion, again, fire away in the chat. And finally, what if your school was the one tampering with Williams? Be honest. Take your colored glasses for whatever institution you root for. Take them off. Take them off. Would you turn the other cheek? I've asked this in some other situations. on some private message boards, et cetera, over the years. It's roughly 50% are okay with it because they just can't stand to lose. I'll give the people credit on that last one. And half of them are like, no, I'd rather not do it. I'm curious what the take is with this because it's such a public situation. And I also think because so many people find Kiffin to be appalling, they don't like his personality or his tweets, kind of old school people especially don't like him. This will be a very interesting discussion. But let's go through these again. We've kind of touched on the NIL contracts are not enforceable. Let me bring up what little I know from just kind of chatting with lawyers. Look, it's not an employee. It's a 1099 and it's NIL. He doesn't have a contract necessarily that states he has to be at Washington, yet basically a contract stating he's got certain things to do. That's how I know that this is awkward. And if it says Washington in the contract, I have not looked at it. That gets into a whole nother realm. But I'm assuming this is more third-party stuff, like what he has to do for the boosters or whatever party it is. And again, if that's not the case, that's a whole nother deal. But I don't think the schools can hold him accountable to them unless he is an employee. If you're a lawyer, fire away on this. But I don't think an NIL contract's the same thing in any way, shape, or form. That's awkward. Number two, why does Damon Williams to LSU make sense? Well, there's two reasons. Number one, schematically, he fits what Lane Kiffin does. And for those of you who don't know, Damon is originally from Arizona and originally committed to Kiffin at Ole Miss before decommitting, committing to Arizona. Then Jedd Fisch ends up signing with Washington. He goes up there. So he followed the coach that he got second time commitment. And now it looks like he's trying to go back to the original. Of course, LSU is a whole nother deal, especially if the numbers are true that it's $5-6 million. Because it looks like Levitt's not going to go to LSU. So scheme fit, familiarity, LSU's got money. For those who don't know, they're doing this special deal with Nike. LSU's a big Nike school. And in addition to like the rev share and some other opportunities, Nike's sponsoring specific players there. They already got like 10. I don't know if Damon would be on that list or additional or however they would do it. But there's a lot of different opportunities at LSU. They're a little more unique, at least for now. This probably get copied by most schools. Maybe he thinks he's going to recoup some of that. I don't know. But Fisch's offense allows Damon to do a lot of things. But LSU and Kiffin is pretty darn good. You have to give the guy credit. He can coach quarterbacks and receivers. That's pretty well known. So I get it. Just from their perspective, take the litigation out of it. I understand the interest. But again, like 4 days after you sign it, it's pretty awkward. Again, no repercussions. Are there really any rosters? I'm going to keep saying that because this is my biggest fear. I want everybody's comment on that, whether you're in the chat, whether you listen to this later. How would you look at it? Whatever school, like if you're Boise State and you have some quarterback that's under the radar in a couple of years and LSU comes calling, you've already got the NIL deal with them. Do you really think you can outbid not only LSU, but Nike? Really? Probably not. And here's another one. This is where it's going to get really touchy. It doesn't have to be LSU, but this scenario can play out at a lot of schools. What happens, and this is definitely going to happen, because especially with Nike, because they represent so many schools, when a team represented by Nike tries to steal a quarterback from another school also represented by Nike, and they're talking about the money, that gets very awkward. So you're betting against yourself essentially, and that's very touchy. That's something that somebody else that really likes to dive into this stuff will do better than me, but I just want to bring it up. Who should be getting sued? This is just my opinion, and I certainly, again, I am not in any way, shape, or form a lawyer. I did not go to law school. I have no interest, but this is something I think will eventually happen. I'm not saying it's going to happen now. Eventually, instead of the player getting sued or whatever, it's the coach, not the school, the coach at the other school that is going to get sued, like personal lawsuits. Eventually, that's going to happen, especially with a guy like Kiffin, who's not exactly the most popular person in the coaching circuit amongst fans, amongst boosters from other schools. Remember, these collectives are boosters. It's not the school necessarily that would be suing Kiffin in this case, or whatever coach it might be. It would be the collective for trying to steal their investment. There's a lot of different ways I could see that going. I could see that. Maybe that happens. Maybe that doesn't. But at some point, I have a feeling the fear of that litigation is going to come into play. I'm not saying it's going to be here. I don't know what Washington's boosters or whatever are going to do. But do not be shocked if that eventually happens. Just something to think about. Finally, again, just going to keep asking this. If you're not an LSU fan and you're listening to this podcast, whether it's live or later on, if your school was in this exact same scenario, be honest, would you be against it if you knew your school was getting an A-plus quarterback for the offense that you run? Take your colored glasses off. Put your honesty hat on. Would you be okay with it if it meant more wins? I think roughly 50 to 60% of the people, because it's their school, aren't going to care. We got to be honest as a society. We don't do well with losing in any way, shape, or form. American society needs to, I'm on my political side here, just in general, and I'm talking about like Republicans, Democrats, just anything. We suck at losing. We are poor losers in anything. College football is pretty darn near the top. The elite fans, the ones that are truly into it with all their might, yeah, they can't handle it no matter what the reason is. So again, if you don't agree with this scenario, cool. But if the shoe was on the other foot and this was your school, would you speak up or would you go silent? So with all of that in mind, I want to kind of look at this from a perspective of, hey, what are we going to do about this? I want you to think about it. I want your comments, not only in the chat, not only like right after this show coming on. This is something we're going to revisit over and over again. It's very, very important because if we don't fix this pretty quick, this is going to spiral out of control. And maybe this case, like there's only two schools involved here, Washington and LSU, allegedly. Who knows? Maybe he's looking at some others too. I'm not sure. But eventually it's going to be your school. And even if it's not your school getting the player that goes to another school, that's going to be your arch rival. How are you going to feel about it then? If you're an Alabama fan, you're right now, you're like, oh, this sucks. We don't want Kiffin to have Devon Williams. If you're an Arkansas fan, this sucks. If you're an A&M fan, this sucks. It impacts people in a lot of different ways. So when we come back, we'll talk more about it. We'll also get into some of the latest commitments and some of the things going on. That is next right here on the Portal Podcast. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at Rocket Money. Let's be real. Managing your finances can feel overwhelming. Between subscriptions you forgot about, bills that keep going up, and trying to figure out where all your money actually goes each month, it's easy to feel like you're losing control. And who has time to track every transaction or hunt down hidden fees? That's where Rocket Money comes into play, the personal financial app that helps you take control. Rocket Money helps you find and cancels your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can actually grow your savings instead of losing them. So if you have, like me, subscriptions for streaming services, sometimes you watch a show, maybe like college football, there's certain ones that I have certain parts of the year and some that I don't. If you don't turn it off, they're not going to stop taking that money. And that's a low-hanging fruit. How about this? If you're somebody that likes to go get DoorDash or whatever it may be, there are hundreds of different sites like that send all these opportunities to you, but there might be a fee that you're not thinking about. It could be a lot of different things. Did you turn it off when you're not using it? That's something that Rocket Money can help you with. So let Rocket Money help you reach your financial goals. Join at rocketmoney.com/locked-on. That's rocketmoney.com/locked-on. rocketmoney.com/locked-on. If you want to take your game to the next level, check out our Everydayer Club right here on the Portal Podcast. Description down below. Hit the link. It'll describe more, but here's the basis. If you want to take your ads off, no ads, that's cool. All you got to do is check it out for $5 a month or for $50 for the entire year. No ads on your audio, none at all. So whether you're going to the gym, long drive, long walk, whatever it is, take the podcast with you. Check out the Everydayer Club down below in the description. All right, now let's talk a little bit about what college football thinks. I think about half the fans are going to be kind of iffy on it because it's so confusing and it's a lawyer issue. Totally get that. I'm in that boat with you. But as more information comes out, here's my prediction. More and more people are going to be mad because of some of the things I said right before the break. What happens if a guy like this, again, I'm just using the Damon to LSU situation as a possibility. It could be a million different scenarios because if this does go through, again, it's a precedent because not only is it a good player, it's a quarterback. It changes a conference race. It changes rivalries. It changes a school's budget. It changes a school's ability to get enrollment. Think about this. Several different teams, whether it's NCAA tournament, whether it's college football playoff, when they make a run, I don't know why it's this way, but academically, all of a sudden, you get a lot more applications just for regular students. They make more money. They get more selective. It impacts people across the United States. But let's be more specific. Let's just say you're a Florida Gator fan. What if Georgia did this? It's not like Kirby Smart needs any help. If some kid, and I'm not saying Georgia is, I'm just using them as an example, but if some kid signed a deal, Mac school, but he's a kid that's been under the radar, had a really good sophomore year, Kirby wanted that guy. Contract signed, NIL signed. Again, Georgia doesn't need a whole lot of help. Do you think Florida, who's an arch rival? Do you think Georgia Tech? Do you think Tennessee? Do you think Alabama? Do you think any of those schools would be happy about that? Of course not. This is going to impact everybody. It changes the rankings. It changes the college football playoff rankings. This is a ripple down effect across the landscape. So what can be done about it? This is where I make my traditional statement. This drives me bananas. The NCAA, until otherwise proven, is as toothless as it gets. The Xavier Lucas situation last year went into litigation, and again, that's not my bag, but Xavier Lucas is going to play for Miami against Ole Miss. So obviously, not much happened. I don't know if there was a private settlement or anything like that, but not to my knowledge. And he left like after the portal. Has the NCAA got any ability to enforce laws, or do they even care? They just cashing checks, hanging out at the office and eating ice cream. Right now, it's looking like the latter. So if that's the case, why would anybody believe this isn't about to blow up in a bad way? Because there is one thing about the profession of law and litigation in general that I am 100% steadfast with. It is slow to get done. Lawyers are infamous if they know they're probably going to lose, finding ways to quote unquote draw it out, push back court dates. And even if you lose in the long run, school may not mind. Like if you, let's say you get a guy and you win a title, then 5 months after the title, you lose the lawsuit. Well, the money you made for winning that title will definitely offset the $5 million you lost. I'm just throwing out numbers. So help me out here. Like, what's the best way to fix this beyond the NCAA actually doing its job, which apparently is, until otherwise proven, not very likely. So with that, I'm going to open it up to the chat a little bit here. We'll have a little bit of fun. Anything you want to talk about is fine, but I absolutely do want to talk about demand as much as we can, because that's the biggest topic right now with the transfer portal. Happy Thursday afternoon, Portal Podcast Nation. What's going on, Mr. Salty Peanuts? I saw a fun meme. Lane Kiffin is leaving LSU to be the president of Venezuela. I saw that too. Whoever did that is hilarious. That was really good. I saw it on Instagram or X or one of those. Jameson Mertz, exactly. If a contract isn't binding, it'll make everything way more chaotic. James Mertz, 9033. You are 100% correct. Post of the day. That is a problem. Like, if your word's not good, that's a problem. But when your word's not good and the contract's not good, what are we doing? What are we doing? That's no bueno. Adam, 5821. Has Williams already been paid by Washington? I don't know the dates. Like, I literally have not read the contract. That's a great question, but he signed it. And I don't know if there was like some upfront money or all that stuff. So this is just my guess. If part of that contract, there was, let's say 10% of it was just a sign, and it's, $4 million a year, he got $400,000. If he leaves, he should have to give that back, which I assume they wouldn't really fight. But let's look at it from the other perspective. There's another lawsuit that's going on. This is a great question. Damon Wilson was at Georgia for 2 years, transferred to Missouri. Ironically, he's back in the portal. But he had $390,000 and / the time that goes with it left on his contract at UGA, and he hit the portal. I don't know if he signed a deal where it said he couldn't transfer. The one at Washington, allegedly, for Damon Williams says that. But Georgia's suing him. Where that's at, how that goes, I have no idea. Breach of contract, I'm not sure the specific parameters, but it's something along those lines. Again, if you want to go read it, I'm sure you can. I hate that stuff. I hate lawyer speak. I hate all those words you need a thesaurus. I'm not interested. But it's still in the same area. So if he's been paid, my guess is he has to give the money back if he does transfer to LSU or any other institution. Really good question. Next, Jameson Mertz. It doesn't matter if he got paid yet or not. He already signed the contract to stay at Washington. He'll receive his payments on the agreed upon dates. He should, but if he breaks contract, he won't. I'm sure Washington's going to tell him to get bent. Or let me be more clear. Washington's probably not the best word here. And somebody can look this up and drop it in the chat. Again, I don't have any interest. I would wager strongly that it's either one of two following things. It's University of Washington / whatever their collective is, or it's just the collective. In some way, shape, or form, it's the collective. And like I mentioned in the first part of the show, let's say it doesn't have to be Washington this time, but somewhere down the line when this happens, that collective for school A is going to not sue the school that's taking the player. They're going to sue the coach. They're going to make this personal to try to get coaches not to do it. There has to be a direct ramification on the coach. Now, I don't know how that would go, but in some way, shape, or form, they have to make that individual's life miserable. It's not the money, because they can get a booster to pay that off at a school. If they think they're going to win a title, they don't care. A lot of schools don't care. You have to literally make the person that's going to be the head coach at that school miserable. That's got to be your objective, because otherwise they're making so much money, they don't even care. Like Kiffin's going to make well over $10 million a year. He doesn't care. Penalize him $1 million. You think he cares about that? He would pay $1 million right now to get a ring. He doesn't care about that. You have to make him miserable. And I'm just using him as an example because it could be numerous other coaches coming down the road. Just saying. All right. MISAN therapist, Jesus. The sport is a blank show. There needs to be rules. Straightforward as it gets. 100%. Breaking your contract shouldn't even be an option. Right now, it looks like it. Without any buyout clauses and whatnot. Yeah, true. So LSU would be better off paying Washington than creating a larger thing where the Big Ten gets involved in the matter. That's a good point. Does the Big Ten kind of battle here? Because I'm sure, although they are not going to talk about it, people from the front office in the SEC and the Big Ten are going to come together, if they haven't already, and it's like, okay, we're not condoning this, but we're in it, whether we want to be or not. How do we handle this? Because this isn't going away. Those are the two biggest entities in college athletics, the Big Ten and the SEC. And it just happens that the two schools involved are under their wing, or wings as it is. So you have to be able to have some conversation, because you want to, quote unquote, mitigate the damage collectively from a PR standpoint for your leagues. And that gets very touchy, because I'm just going on experience. This is not opinion. This is direct experience. Oftentimes somebody, especially a power team in a conference, in Alabama, LSU, whatever, Michigan or Ohio State, whatever, those teams don't want to go along with what the league says, because they have so much power with their alumni, with what they can do, and they know the league needs them. No offense, but Rutgers doesn't have the same pull as the AD, let's say, at Ohio State. It's true. Mississippi State AD doesn't have the same pull as the individual that's at Texas A&M or Texas or Alabama, whatever. It's just true. So that will be very interesting. Does the Big Ten get involved here? I don't know. I really don't. And when I say get involved, I'm talking about publicly. They're 100% involved behind the scenes. They have to be. That's their job. But I'm talking about from a litigation standpoint. Could the Big Ten sue LSU or Kiffin personally or whatever, or be the plaintiff, if you will, co-plaintiff against LSU if this goes through? I guess. Again, that's for the lawyers to decide. I'm just talking out loud. But I would love to know what people think about that. If there's a lawyer that wants to comment on this, what do you think about that? This is something I'm just now coming up with. And again, based on this post here in the chat, would it be wise for the quote unquote conference, in this situation, it's Big Ten, but later it could be in reverse. It could be a Big Ten school. Michigan State steals a player from Tennessee. I don't know, whatever. Is it wise to put your name on that plaintiff sheet? That's a lot of power when you say SEC or Big Ten, even ACC, Big 12. Like, that's a lot of power. Because then you're getting ESPN involved, whether directly or not. You're getting CBS involved, Fox involved, ABC involved, and every other entity. Because whether they're at that point contractually obligated to them, they're always looking. So everything you do is going to be scrutinized by every person that sends you money. That is a fascinating topic within itself. And I don't know where in the world that's going to go. That is way out of my realm, but like, money is the end all be all. And it's the only reason that we're in this mess, because I'm just going to go ahead and say this, not you all don't know it. The only reason players aren't employees is because they would make a lot more money in the powers that be, meaning the advertisers, school presidents, boosters, whatever. They make a lot more money by players not being employees. Plus, on the back end, after their career's over, workman's comp, retirement, all that, they don't want them to get it. When I say more money, I'm talking like 5 to 10 times as much. And I mean that literally. So I had somebody explain it to me, and I'll leave it at that. It's a story for another day. So again, should the Big Ten in this case, or down the road, anybody else that's a conference affiliate, should they get involved and even potentially sue? I could see it, but there are probably ramifications for that. If you got a comment, fire away. I'm against it, even if it helps my team. I appreciate that. That is from James Mertz. I bet a lot of fans are thinking the opposite of James, but they don't want to say it. They don't want to get hacked. They don't want to get smacked around. I get it, though. People blame the NCAA, but the institutions that the NCAA was tasked with governing constantly sue the NCAA when they actually do try to enforce rules and standards. That's not wrong. That is 100%. That is a great point. It's like, we're only for the NCAA if it helps our wallet. When it doesn't help our wallet, we're suing them. That's true. That's been going on for decades. It's ridiculous. It's embarrassing. So with that being stated, I'm really curious about the following. What in the world is going on with this particular situation that made, again, I'm assuming it was Kiffin that created contact. If it's not, so be it. But whomever at LSU created contact, are they just not, they're just not worried about any ramifications, or is it just worth it? I don't know. Maybe they just thought, nobody's going to do anything. It didn't happen to Miami with the whole situation with Xavier Lucas last year. The DB went for Wisconsin. He's a South Florida kid. He went back home. He had just signed a contract with Wisconsin. I don't know. It's a really interesting situation.